Hello and welcome to my 10-year anniversary with multiple sclerosis. I honestly cannot even believe that it has been 10 years since my diagnosis. So in today's video, as my 10-year anniversary, I'm going to be speaking about what I've learned over the years, my symptoms and how they've changed over the years depending on the medication, what medication I'm currently on, as well as the tips and tricks that I've learned over the years, some holistic things, some herbal remedies, all of the things that I do and use to help me cope with my disease, help me cope with my energy levels. And then I'm also going to be speaking about brain fog and chronic fatigue, which is a huge thing that a lot of people with multiple sclerosis struggle with. And I think that it is possibly one of the most awful and debilitating symptoms of this disease, and some of the things that I've learned over the years to kind of hack my system when it comes to dealing with chronic fatigue and brain fog so that I can still show up in the world filled with vitality, energy, health, and joy. So let's get into the video. So I was diagnosed with MS about a month or two before my 17th birthday, but I'd really started experiencing symptoms since I was about 14 years old. So when I was 14, we thought that I had a dance injury, I was bedridden, and I couldn't walk or get up. It progressed to where I lost feeling in my leg, and then when I was 16, I went deaf. The deafness ultimately led to the diagnosis. I went to go and see an ear specialist, and he suggested that I get an MRI with contrast, which I did, along with a lumbar puncture. That's usually the diagnosis for MS. Through that, they're able to see if you have lesions in your brain or spinal cord, which I did, and then I subsequently started Tecfidera. So I turned 17, started taking Tecfidera twice a day, and my symptoms pretty much stayed the same and actually progressed and got way worse. I relapsed almost repeatedly on Tecfidera until the point that we decided to switch to Ocrevus. I was on Tecfidera for 5 years. Throughout that process, I really struggled. I felt like I wasn't able to live my life. I wasn't able to enjoy my life. It almost felt like there was a fog completely draped over me and that I could see the outline of my life, but I couldn't really live it. I didn't have or feel like I had enough energy to live it. I really struggled with concentrating. I struggled so much with energy levels. I struggled with numbness, with tingling in my legs. I also really struggled to walk, and I had chronic back pain. So walking more than like 10 minutes would leave me feeling really exhausted and in a lot of pain, frankly. And so it really affected my life, and I was not doing well on the Tecfidera. Besides the relapsing, I was also getting a lot of flushing in the morning and the night, and because I was young and I was at school, it really affected me, and I felt very embarrassed and self-conscious about the medication, and that led to also me not wanting to take the medication. So of course there were a lot of things at play. Ultimately, for 5 years I was really struggling until we decided to make the switch to Ocrevus. The reason why my parents and my neurologist decided to make the switch to Ocrevus was actually because I experienced a really bad relapse around the time that I was 21. I experienced what felt like brain jitters. I had a lot of pain. I had a lot of chronic fatigue, way worse than ever before, and I just wasn't getting a handle on my life. Through that, we decided to switch to Ocrevus, which has completely transformed my life. And I feel like through the Ocrevus infusions, I've really been able to reclaim my life, reclaim my health, and just live the way I've kind of always wanted to live. I feel so much healthier and so much better, and I feel like I'm able to not only cope with having an autoimmune disease, also the autoimmune disease doesn't stop me from living. I have a lot of vitality, I have a sense of purpose again, and I just feel like I've really been able to reclaim my life for myself and do the things that I want to do and live better. So Ocrevus is something that you will get twice a year, so you get it every 6 months. The infusion is about 4 hours, but you obviously have to factor in checking into the hospital, the flushing that happens afterwards, some of the observations. All in all, it's probably going to be about a day thing. I really like the fact that it's every 6 months because I feel like I'm still able to live my life and not really focus too much on treatments. And I like that you go in, you get the infusion, and then it sets you up for the next 6 months. And at the moment it's working really well for me, so I'm definitely not going to change it. I also like that I can travel and I have a lot of freedom and mobility without worrying about treatments. Of course, whatever medication you're on, if it's working for you, then it's working for you. This is definitely what works for me. So I love the freedom and mobility, and I also really love the way that it has been able to stabilize my disease. So of course I still have MS. It's not going to go away just because I'm on this treatment, but overall my quality of life has improved. I think it's important to say that of course I still experience some multiple sclerosis symptoms such as brain fog, chronic fatigue, back pain, a little bit of muscle pain. I obviously experience the tingling and the pins and needles, but all in all, everything is much better. Beyond that, none of the relapses that I had were permanent, so I have my hearing back, I have feeling in my legs, of course, I'm able to walk, and I'm so much more healthy than where I was when I was first diagnosed. So one of the main symptoms that I struggle with the most is chronic fatigue and brain fog, and I think that this is something that most people with multiple sclerosis, regardless of the treatment that you're going to be on, I think that this is pretty much standard and what you're going to continue to experience. So let's go into a little bit about how I cope with my symptoms and what I do to alleviate some of it, and then I'll go into some of the mind, body, soul tips and tricks that I have learned over the years. First things first is supplements. I use 5-HTP. This has been such a game changer for my energy levels. When I take 5-HTP, it helps with melatonin production, therefore you're able to sleep better, and it also helps with serotonin, so you are able to cope with any depression you might have as a result of the disease. Through better sleep and through sleeping deeper, you'll find that you'll at least have a little bit more energy in the morning. Of course, it doesn't alleviate all the brain fog and the fatigue, but paying attention to your sleep really does help a lot. So other ways that you can pay attention to your sleep would be drinking valerian root. I drink this at night to help me wind down. I also pair it with passion flower and sometimes a little bit of chamomile. Those things together, along with a magnesium supplement, help me pay attention to my sleep hygiene, and so I'm able to sleep better and deeper, and that kind of helps me in the day. However, of course, chronic fatigue is so intense that it is really difficult to alleviate those symptoms. So in the morning, I often feel that chronic fatigue, and so what I like to do is I wake up in the morning, and I think it's really important to pay attention to your glucose levels. So this has been the ultimate game changer to me, paying attention to glucose spikes and protecting them at all costs. How do you do that? Well, every time you have a carb or a starch, you want to think about dressing your carb or starch with a fat and a protein. So I will no longer eat any carbs or starches without having protein and fat with them. This really protects your energy levels, so you're not experiencing extreme dips, and so you're not experiencing as much fatigue and you're not experiencing as much brain fog. For people with multiple sclerosis, because this is such an intense symptom that we experience, you need to be very mindful about what you're doing in the day, how it's affecting your energy levels, so that you can ensure that you're protecting yourself against those dips. You're going to have chronic fatigue and brain fog regardless of what you do, but there are things that can worsen it, and glucose spikes have been one of the things that worsen it for me. Another thing you could do is have apple cider vinegar and ginger right before you eat anything. This also helps alleviate those glucose spikes. Once you've paid attention to your glucose spikes, another tip that I have is to pay attention to inflammation. Another important and vital thing that helps with brain fog. When it comes to inflammation in the body, and because we have an autoimmune disease, you're going to have more inflammation than the average person. You have to pay a little bit more attention to your inflammation. So for me, I like to have my bulletproof tea. People usually do this with coffee, but I don't do caffeine, so I put a teaspoon of coconut oil, turmeric, a little bit of honey in a cup of tea. I drink that, and that's just like my anti-inflammatory drink. My other anti-inflammatory drink that I shared was apple cider vinegar and ginger. You can add a little bit of turmeric in there, and there you have a beautiful anti-inflammatory shot, which will also protect against those glucose spikes. Going further into inflammation, you also want to be looking at detoxification. So I like to make sure that I'm detoxing any of that harmful stuff from my body. So I go for dandelion and nettle infusions. I have a whole video about herbalism for multiple sclerosis, so check that out. That goes a little bit more in depth in my tinctures and all that kind of stuff. But dandelion and nettle is so great for detoxification. So dandelion and nettle allows you to just detox all of those harmful chemicals. Nettle also really helps with your energy levels, and it's important to have these consistent healthy energy levels because you have fatigue. You don't want to be spiking it with caffeine because you're going to be experiencing that dip. Whereas nettle and dandelion allows you to have a really healthy energy level so that it doesn't crash throughout the day. Another thing to do is just make sure you have enough hydration. Normal water doesn't always help, so I would suggest having Himalayan salt in your water so that you're having those electrolytes. If you want to go even deeper into supporting your adrenals, then I would suggest having Himalayan salt, a squeeze of lemon juice, some collagen powder, and there you go, you have a beautiful healing, nourishing adrenal support drink. The thing that really helps chronic fatigue and brain fog is breath work. I know that this might feel a little bit woo-woo to some people, but often when it comes to brain fog, part of it is not getting enough oxygen to the brain. You do breath work, you're just encouraging that flow of oxygen through to the brain, and you're encouraging blood flow and all the good things, and it really helps cope with brain fog. So if I'm feeling especially brain foggy, then I'll stop my work and I'll just have like a 5-minute breathwork session to really help support me. Something else that has also been so fundamental for me on my 10-year journey with multiple sclerosis is paying attention to your mind, body, and soul. Treating your system in a very holistic way. So not just treating the body, but also paying attention to what's going on in the mind and what's going on in the soul. Of course, getting the right medication, the right treatment plan for you is going to be fundamental to helping you live a happy life. Beyond that, there's other steps that you also need to take. You can't only pay attention to your treatment and think that everything else is just going to magically feel better. You also have to process your emotions and continuously come back to yourself to pay attention to what's going on internally. It is a very, very difficult thing to be diagnosed with an autoimmune disease that is literally going to last your lifetime. It is something that is going to affect you. And so you need to be willing to meet yourself in that pain, but then also learn to overcome it. We do that through processing our emotions, journaling, meditating. Maybe you have a practice, maybe you have a therapist. Whatever it is for you, you need to be coming back to yourself and nurturing yourself and actually paying attention to what's coming up because of this disease. And I'm very much about the mindset that it's also important to be positive. So not surrounding yourself with people who have a lot of doom and gloom. I don't really recommend joining Facebook groups where people are sharing like the worst of their life with MS. I think it's important to have a little bit of discernment, but I also think it's important to have a support system. So I'm not saying deny the reality of your illness. Definitely face the reality of your illness. Also surround yourself with a community and a support system where you're not just sitting in the negativity of the disease, but you're finding ways to move beyond it. So it's a healthy balance between processing your emotions and showing up for the very real things that MS, living a life with MS, is going to inevitably lead to. But it's also about being positive and holding the highest vision for your life and doing the things that support that. Community is really important. If your friends and family don't understand what you're going through, then I highly recommend joining some support groups with other people who have MS, or at least speaking to your family to get that support. But then it's also a completely individual and personal journey. So my focus is less on like the community aspect, which of course is important, and more on the mind, body, soul aspect. So for me, I know that I'm covering all of my bases. I'm covering my first base by getting the right treatment plan for me, having a neurologist, getting my 6 monthly infusions, but I also need to cover my bases by doing my yoga practice, by journaling, by pulling oracle cards, by connecting with spirit, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, to understand why you were put in this body, why you were put in this experience, how you can heal and move forward, how you can use the pain as your message. There's a message in the mess. And so it's important to also come to some kind of realization, I don't know, just a acceptance of what has happened to you, but then how are you then going to use that to aid your purpose, to inspire yourself, to inspire people around you. Through connecting with something higher than me and tending to my soul, I am able to see how I can do that. So part of it is making videos, other parts is my writing. All of these things feed my soul so that I'm not just stuck in like this physical experience of having an autoimmune disease. I actually think it's a deeply spiritual experience to have an autoimmune disease. It makes you so sensitive. It makes you so empathetic to other people, to other people's experiences. It also makes you so aware of your own body, of your subtle shifts. I think it's also made me have extremely discerning boundaries. I don't have the ability to spend time with people who don't serve me because I will get sick. I am sensitive. My body is sensitive because I don't have the capacity in my body to be around things that are not in alignment with me. So that allows me to have strong boundaries and be very discerning with my energy, with who I'm spending time with, the kind of people I'm allowing into my life. Are they positive? Are they making me more sick? Are the things that I'm doing making me more sick? That's another really important lesson that I think most people with the disease have to learn, is understanding that are the things that you're doing in your life every single day making you healthy or making you sick? Are they feeding and nourishing you, or are they aggravating your disease? So that comes down to not only the food you eat and the treatment plan you're on, but energetically, what are you consuming? Whether it's like, what kind of media are you consuming? What kind of friends are you surrounding yourself with? What is your partner like? How is your partner treating you? Do you have a positive relationship? Especially our romantic relationships, so important when it comes to our autoimmune disease. Like, if you have a partner that's causing more inflammation in your body because you fight a lot and you have a lot of like aggression and things like that, that is not good. That's not healthy. And so I think it's really important. One of the biggest shifts that ever happened in my life was paying attention to my nervous system around my romantic partners, and only having a romantic partner that is going to actually feed and nourish my nervous system. Like, I can't have a romantic partner who I am having fights with all the time. It's actually not conducive to my health. And it's not even a silly thing. It's actually a really important thing, because you can get sick. You can have a relapse. Stress makes you relapse. So if you're not paying attention to who you're surrounding yourself with, and you're putting your body in stressful situations, it's going to have a very negative, dangerous effect on you. And so it's not something silly. It's not something woo-woo. It's not something mystical. And I love all the woo-woo and the mystical things, of course. But these kinds of things that I'm speaking about, like protecting your nervous system, being in alignment, all of that stuff is actually all about your body and doing what's healthy for you, because anything that's causing you stress is going to lead to inflammation, is going to lead to relapses. Your doctor, your neurologist will tell you that stress is an extremely terrible thing for people with MS. People with MS who are very stressed have relapses. It happened to me. Times when I had relapses were also subsequently the most stressful times in my life, times in my life where I wasn't honoring sleep, where I was not honoring what I eat, who I surround myself with, and all that kind of stuff. So as much as it is spiritual, it's also really just fact that stress is not good for your body, and it's not good for multiple sclerosis. You need to be honoring sleep, you need to be protecting yourself, and you need to have strong boundaries with who you allow into your space. So that is an overview of my life for the past 10 years with multiple sclerosis. I hope that you found something in this video that has been helpful for you. I know that maybe it was all over the place and quite confusing, but I hope that you can take some things with you, and I hope that there is something in here that you can take home and incorporate into your own life. Having multiple sclerosis is not easy. It's a very difficult disease. It's going to be tough, and I think most importantly, process that, be gentle with yourself, hold yourself, love yourself, nurture yourself, and then do what works for you. So thank you so much for tuning in and watching this video and spending your time with me. It means the absolute world. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to watch this video. If you would like any more information, please reach out to me. I'll see you in the next one. Lots and lots of love wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much.